Welcome to Kerbal Space Program Episode 2, Discovering Space. So in this episode we will try to get into space. I'm going to start out with a command pod, the Mark 1 command module. Parachutes are always good. You want your Kerbals to come back alive. That is the plan. Okay, need some propulsion, so get a smaller fuel tank and put the smaller engine on it. Essentially this stage, well, depending on the mission plan, whatever the plan may be, it will get us back to the home planet one way or another. Yeah, that should be fine there. Okay, probably throw in a decoupler in there. Oh, yeah, I guess the next thing, add some mystery goo containment units. I think put 4 of those on there. Yeah, that's not a good spot for it. Okay, put 4 of those on there. Use X to change the symmetry. So you got 4 times symmetry. And at various points throughout the flight, we can use those up and get a pile of science. Okay. Yeah, and there's no batteries, no solar panels, so that's not much fun. But we can throw some legs on there. Oh. I guess put an antenna or 2. I don't think we need 4. Yeah, change the symmetry. Let's stick 2 of those on there. Alright, yeah, up there is probably a good spot. Can add more things down below, like parachutes. Parachutes are always useful. And so with those 3 parachutes, that whole top stage should land safely, which is again always a good thing. Okay, and yeah, here we go, adjusting things again. Like I was saying before, legs would be a good idea, so probably stick some of those on there. Now at the very least, to try and get this thing into orbit, potentially, depending on how much fuel there is and whatever, you can do a flyby of the moon and possibly even land on the moon. Tough thing is there are no batteries and no solar panels, so that makes things difficult. I guess it is what it is. You do what you can early on in the game. The other sad thing is that engine that's currently on this stage does not generate electricity. So basically once that engine is running, the only power that we've got is whatever was in the spacecraft when this whole thing gets separated. Speaking of which, put in a decoupler so that you can separate whatever you attach to the bottom. Throw in a few of these fuel tanks. And we're going for broke here. Let's put in 4 of those. And the bigger engine. More power. Okay. Yeah, and turn that into a sub-assembly so that we can bring that up and use it again. And I tend to just name these according to how many fuel tanks and how many engines are attached. So we'll just call this one 4 tanks and 1 engine. Or just 4 tanks and 1. That works too. Okay, so bring that back out. Click on it on the left there and bring it back out. And now we can add some more. Just lift that up a bit. Okay, and back to structural. Get some radial decouplers because they're always fun, and use X to change the symmetry. Okay, we'll look at adding 6 of those. Line it up till I'm happy. And that looks good. Line it up, click, and go back to the sub-assemblies and bring that out again. So now we got 6 more of those. Just want to line them up properly so that we know that that they will detach with the decoupler. I have unfortunately had many cases where I try and line things up and there's a decoupler there. You fire the decoupler and they're still attached. It's not fun when that happens, and if you're lucky you still have enough force to counteract the weight and you still end up in space, but it definitely defeats the purpose of trying to make your craft more fuel efficient if you're carrying all that extra weight. So that looks good. So put an aerodynamic nose cone on each of those, and let's add a fin. Sadly, these fins are just good for stabilization. They offer absolutely no controls at all. They do not move. They don't have any moving parts. They're just good for stability. But still doesn't hurt to throw them in there. Okay, now I'm just checking to make sure it's got everything that I think it should have. And I guess it's pretty enough. I don't know. I mean, that should easily get us into orbit and hopefully beyond. Again, with those mystery goo containers, they're a one-use thing. Even if you transmit the information back, they're no good. So it's best to use them the one time and bring them back home. That's why they're all on that top stage. And so you kind of have to plan out where in your flight you want to use them, so that you don't really waste the chances of getting science for it. And that's it, I guess. Got it. Check it from all angles. Also watch the staging. So those first 6 rockets around the ring will fire, and then they will detach, and then that middle rocket will fire, and might as well have that set up. So yeah, I like to do this. Set it up so that those detach and it fires at the same time. So as soon as those other ones separate, it will fire, and then I've set the next stage to do the same thing. As soon as that rocket is detached, it will fire. Oh, hey, and let's get more creative. Add more propulsion. So, solid fuel booster. And get that set up so that it fires first and detaches when the other rockets fire. And then set up some more. Yeah, I think at this point it's safe to let you know that a lot of times I've been known to kind of overdo it with rockets, but I figure more power is often a good solution. It may not always be better, but it's fun, and yeah, it makes a lot of noise and shines a lot of light. Okay, so basically get that set up so that all 7 of those will fire at the same time, and once they're done, they will detach. Then the 6 outer rockets will fire, and then they detach, and the middle rocket will fire and hopefully carry us well into space. So we'll just call it Kerbal Research Vehicle 1, save it on the top right there, click save, and then we can launch it. Just move over to the green. Green means go. Go, rocket, go. Alright, there we are on the launch pad with Jebediah Kerman. So, turn the thrust all the way up and hit the space bar, and we're off. Also, yeah, hit T to turn on the SAS. Although technically we don't have any special system. As you see on the left, those rockets are overheating. With the solid rocket boosters, once they're fired, you can't do anything about them except drop them. And when they're fired and you drop them, they start going through the rest of your rocket. So you just have to deal with it. As long as they don't go to the end before, as long as they don't explode while they're attached to your rocket, you're good. So detach that stage and we're off. 3 kilometers up and still going. Couple of things. One, I'm basically, listening to what other people have to say. It sounds like once you're up at 10 kilometers or 10,000 meters, that's when you can start to turn. Oh, and here we'll observe the mystery goo. Dun, da, da, da. Flying at Kerbal. Goo jiggles and wobbles and blah blah blah. Alright, write that down. Might as well do a crew report. And we can send that back because you get full science for it. So you can send that back home. And with these rockets firing, they do charge the batteries. So that is not really a concern at this point. Anyway, so at 10,000 meters, 10 kilometers, yeah, it's time to start turning. And typically you want to turn towards 90 degrees because that kind of assists you in getting into orbit because of the way that the planet itself is spinning. So instead of trying to get into orbit and fighting against the planet and its natural rotation, you're actually kind of using the planet's natural rotation to help put you into orbit, which is handy. But you don't want to turn over too fast, and you want to make sure that your distance to your highest point there, your apoapse, is a reasonable amount of time, because if that gets too close, and if you end up on the other side of the time there, if you end up on positive time from there, you're in trouble very often. It's hard to come back from that. So now getting up into the upper atmosphere, and those rockets are still firing. Oh wow, and we're now well over double the speed of sound. Excellent. Yeah, speed of sound being about 330 meters per second. And so now we're basically around triple the speed of sound. Mach 3 and rising. Okay, we're over 30 kilometers into the atmosphere. Jebediah seems pretty calm. Just trying to figure out when's a good time to open the next mystery goo container, but here we go. We'll try it. We're over 30,000. See what it says. Upper atmosphere seems to be getting cold now. 7 science. Write that down. Well, I guess with these you don't really write it down. Do a crew report from up there. Excellent. You record the crew's assessment. Upper atmosphere. Send that away. Again, you can send that information and didn't lose a thing. Oh, and the rockets are out. So dump those and move to the next one, and then watch the fancy little demonstration as they go by. Okay, and if we look up here, wow, we're really getting out there. Okay, so it's looking like at the top of our trajectory right now we'll be over 130,000 meters, so now is a good time to stop the engines and basically wait until we get there. You look at the energy, the electricity is going down, so if you hit T at this point, that will conserve the electricity. It won't go down anymore. Monopropellant, I've got 10 units there. I really should have just dumped those from the ship when I built it because I don't have any RCS or reaction control thrusters on there. That should have just been dumped. And so anyway, I can try do another crew report. And space in, oh yes, we're in space. 70,000 kilometers, or 70,000 meters, 70 kilometers is in space. So now that he's in space, can do the crew report, send that off. You can do an EVA report, so put him out of the ship. Do the EVA report. Record your observation about the situation. Alright. You can hit F and send him back in. Or you can just admire the fact that he's hanging on for dear life out in space. No, he's not. Oh yeah, he is. It says F board. Sometimes you send them on an EVA and they're not actually holding on when really I would like them to, because my skills with the rocket pack are very poor. Oh, and now, yeah, not a bad time to try and set up a trajectory. Just to make sure you get into orbit. Okay, so just adjust that. So at the highest point you want to burn in the direction that you're moving. And for whatever reason, I don't know, making some other fine-tuned adjustments here. Don't always need a perfectly circular orbit. Much of the time I tend to avoid those. But here we go. So just a couple of minutes to that point, and we've got the estimated burn time of 22 seconds. Typically what other people seem to do is, if you got a burn time of about 22 seconds, you try to burn 11 seconds before you get to your highest point, or to the point that you're aiming for your burn to occur at. So you put half the time before it, which of course would try to get you doing half the time after it. Once you get into nuclear rockets, though, that theory goes out the window because they're so low on thrust. It can be painful to watch that and to do that. Okay, so we're getting close to that. Now if you look at the nav ball, there's a little blue target there. That's where you want to be pointing when you fire the rockets for your maneuver node. If you use a maneuver node, that blue little target will show up, and that would actually have you firing at the target. And for whatever reason, okay, this is actually, many days after I actually recorded this, so I don't know why I'm not actually firing it right on that target. I guess I decided I'd adjusted the plane of the orbit and I didn't need to, so I was ignoring that fact, which is fair enough, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so transmit. Not a bad idea. Once the engines are running, send the information out instead of running down the batteries while the engines are off. Because as this rocket is now, that engine is the only thing that's actually producing electricity, and the only thing left that can produce electricity. The other engine will not. Okay, so he's getting into orbit here. So try to do another crew report, and it's not worth anything. Apparently we've crew reported that information to death. So he's just going to fire. Oh, and there's the big change, so that means we are now in orbit. So you just double check. Well, okay, we weren't quite in orbit at that point, but now we're in a stable orbit as long as both ends are over 70,000 meters. You are now in stable orbit. So that's about it for now. If you look there, we've got plenty of fuel. 646 liquid fuel left, 790 oxidizer. So at this point it's like, lots of fuel, what can we do? Well, maybe, plus we got a few mystery goo containers left, maybe it would be a good time to head for the moon. Probably just do a lunar flyby, probably have enough fuel to actually land on the moon and get back, but limited amount of mystery goo containers, no batteries, no solar panels, so I'm thinking a flyby is probably the most we want to do. Try do an EVA report here, Jebediah, and you get a little bit of information, so keep that, write it down, board the ship, can transmit that off, and we'll call that an episode. In the next episode, Jebediah heads towards the moon.